What's up, everybody? Week 6 Buffalo Bills recap for you. It's going to be another week of just depressing banter from the Buffalo Bills standpoint. If you're an Atlanta Falcons fan, congratulations, man. Y'all absolutely, lack of better words, just friggin' throttled us last night, man. Buffalo's defense has yet again proven me right. Absolutely pathetic performance, especially in the running game. It's the same old, just rinse and repeat year after year with this Sean McDermott defense, man. You can say what you want. He's not calling the plays this year, but this is his defense. Make no mistake about it, man. Like I had said a couple weeks ago, for a team that has a head coach that is defensive minded, one of the very few left in the NFL, our defense is just abysmal, man. It's sad that it's gotten to the point where, as a Bills fan going into last night's game, I put money on Bijan for over 100 yards rushing, just because I've seen the story, man. The writing was on the wall, and yeah, it was. I would love to say it was, it was kind of like a wake-up call or whatever, man. But you would think the wake-up call happened the week before when they lost at home, a place that they haven't lost in I think like a season and a half, to a division rival. You would figure that would have been the wake-up call, but nope. They looked even worse on Monday Night Football. So yeah, I'll give some thoughts on the game, and then I'm gonna touch on what I want to see going forward. Buffalo's gonna be heading into their bye this week, so I guess this is kind of a blessing in disguise that they have an early bye, because boy, if there was a team in the NFL that needed a bye, just based on injuries and how badly they're playing, it would be the Buffalo Bills right now. So last night, it was kind of shades of the Week 1 game against Baltimore. They kind of just imposed their will on the ground. They basically went right down Buffalo's throats on their opening drive. Surprisingly enough, it was Algier that scored the first touchdown for Atlanta. It was just like, I'm probably going to say it 1,000 times in this video, just the same old. Just guys not in position, missed tackles. And Algier was able just to, scamper in for, I think it was like a 30-yard touchdown run to open it up for Atlanta. And as a Bills fan, man, you're sitting there and you're watching it, and it's like, when is it gonna get changed? It's season after season, and it's the same issues. And Buffalo went defensive heavy in the draft and free agency, and nothing has gotten fixed. And to Buffalo's credit, on offense, their opening drive, they went down the field, they scored. Josh with a absolute rope to Dawson Knox ties the game at 7. But man, after that, Buffalo never really was a threat in the game. Atlanta just they had their way on offense, and it's weird to say, and it also just goes to show you how things can change in the NFL. What was it, 2-3 weeks ago, Atlanta got shut out against Carolina 30-0. The Panthers, I mean, a couple weeks ago were considered probably one of the 2 worst teams in the NFL. And now you turn around and Carolina's, they've reeled off a couple of comeback wins, and Atlanta, beats the Bills at home in prime time, and they look pretty dominating doing so. It was, I don't know what, I'm trying to think of the right words, and probably driving through rush hour traffic in Charlotte and thinking of the words wasn't the right time to do it, but I think if you kind of want to look at just of the epitome of Buffalo's defense, and even I think it was Orlovsky during the broadcast even pointed it out. I think maybe right after halftime or just before halftime, he was even showing Buffalo's linebackers, they were creeping forward on every snap trying to sell out for the run, and all that was doing was letting Drake London get behind him and have a monster game. I mean, I don't remember his total yardage stat line, but I think it was over 150 yards. And that was all set up off the run because Buffalo could not stop the run. And, once Bijan got his big run and extended the lead to, I think at that time it was 21-7, it was looking really, really bleak early. And then, Buffalo gave the ball right back to him. And Atlanta, their drive stalled out. Credit to the Bills defense for stiffening up there. And then, Buffalo gets the ball back, I think, with 17 seconds or something. And rather than, just take your medicine, go into halftime, I mean, your starting field position has been absolutely atrocious this season. I touched on last week's video on how our special teams is just not even close to good. Bills were starting way back, and rather than, just going into halftime, taking your lumps, down 14, you get the ball to start the second half, regroup. Josh forces a ball, gets picked off, and then that gives Atlanta, I think it was 13 seconds. You almost had deja vu. They moved the ball quick, and with about 6 seconds left, they could have either attempted a really long field goal, or they could have had one more play because they had one timeout to get better field position, and they damn near scored a touchdown because Buffalo just cannot tackle. And thank goodness that Drake London stepped out of bounds when he did. Otherwise, Buffalo would have been down 21 points going into halftime. And, you go into halftime as a Bills fan and you're pissed off at the defense. You're pissed off at the offense, which we'll get into the offense in a minute. But, you see 21-7. You get the ball to start the second half. Buffalo has been a second half team. You had a little glimmer of hope, especially to start the second half when Buffalo came out and was able to go down the field and score a touchdown. It was a 7-point game, and then the defense stiffened, held Atlanta, gave the ball back to Buffalo. Man, you're thinking, all right, we got a shot. And then it was just, the offense couldn't move the ball. Defense, to their credit, in the second half, they only allowed 3 points, which, I don't know if that was Atlanta just playing the situation and realizing the lead they had, or if the Bills defense made adjustments. I don't really know at this time, but it was just an ugly game. In the end, Buffalo loses 24-14. They fall to 4-2 on the season. Last week's loss to New England has really come back to haunt them now. They've fallen to second place in the AFC East. I think they fall down to the number 5 seed in the AFC, which obviously it's week 6. don't really pay that much attention this early on, but that loss to New England, man, it's really proven large already. And you look at New England's upcoming schedule, man, they have a very favorable schedule, as does Buffalo. But right now, man, New England's hitting on a lot of cylinders, and Buffalo is leaking oil. I mean, if you want to use car analogies. So yeah, we'll see, man. Hopefully the bye they're able to reset. Trade deadline's coming up. Brandon Beane has got to get on the phone, man. He has got to figure something out, because if we roll with this same team for the rest of the season, man, Buffalo's probably going to be a wild card team, if I'm being honest. If that. So yeah, I mean, that's my general thoughts on the game. I'll touch on the offense real quick. This is the second week in a row that Joe Brady has just pulled the ultimate Ken Dorsey. He has just overcomplicated something that doesn't need to be overcomplicated. Like, he is making very dumb decisions and very dumb play calling in just critical times. And I mean, the one that everybody will point to, and rightfully so, is in the third, I think it was the third quarter. Buffalo had it 3rd and 1. They were driving. Pretty sure they were on Atlanta's side of the field. They had just crossed midfield, I believe. 3rd and 1. Everybody and their mother would tell you, you've got Josh Allen QB sneak it. If anything, you're in plus territory. To me, that's 4 downs. So essentially, you have 2 plays to gain a yard with Josh Allen sneaking it up the middle. Instead, they try this end around reversal to Elijah Moore, who fumbles the handoff, picks it up. Atlanta's waiting for him. Buffalo loses like 6-7 yards, punts it away. To me, that was probably the turning point of the game, at least, maybe of the second half, I should say. Buffalo had just kind of got a little momentum going. Atlanta's offense had kind of stalled out. Buffalo's defense, to their credit, was able to step up and make some stops. And that damn play call, man. That's 2 weeks in a row. I mean, if you remember the New England game, it was the opening drive of New England. They tried the end around to Knox, and Knox fumbled the ball, and New England recovered it. And it's I don't understand it. And when I say it's Ken Dorsey-esque, I mean, that's what got Dorsey fired. He overcomplicated an offense that should be centered around Josh Allen and James Cook. And we're doing these little end around trick plays, what are we doing, man? And speaking of James Cook was on the field, I think, for 53% of the offensive snaps last night. I don't believe he was on the field for any 3rd down or 4th down plays Buffalo had. And to me, that is just, that's a fireable offense, man. Like, James Cook is the 2nd best player on the team behind Josh Allen. What are we doing? Like, why? If you're not going to keep it in Josh's hands on that 3rd and 1, then give it to James Cook. I mean, it's just wildly frustrating. And it's getting to a point, because if you watch the post-game presser with McDermott, he even alluded to, we're not helping our quarterback. We're making things too difficult that don't need to be difficult. Basically kind of what I said, just in a more polite manner. So I don't know, man. You would think that over the bye week there's got to be some kind of come to Jesus meeting between McDermott and Joe Brady, and McDermott and Bobby Babich, the two the two coordinators, and they've got to get on the same page with what they're doing going forward. If Brandon Beane's not going to make a move and improve the roster, which I think he will, he kind of has no choice. But if for some reason he doesn't, and this is the team we have the rest of the way, something's got to be adjusted. I touched last week on the receiving core for Buffalo, and last night was just a prime example of it again. They cannot create separation. They can't win their routes and get open and give Josh a lane to throw. And then on top of that, Atlanta blitzed, I swear, every play, if not every other play. And Buffalo's O-line just got absolutely demolished. I mean, Josh got hit I don't know how many times. I think they got to him for like 4 or 5 sacks. And it got to the point where nobody was getting open. And Josh was just kind of going back to his early days where he got the snap and he's already looking to escape the pocket because he doesn't trust his O-line. He doesn't trust his receivers. And it's just, you're asking for trouble if that's how things are going to be. If Atlanta's going to blitz like that, there's your perfect time for those quick little bubble screens out to the wide receivers, or a delayed handoff, or something that the Bills have done the first 4 weeks. It's like the perfect time to use it. It's against the blitz heavy team, and I don't remember seeing one. So I don't know, man. Obviously they know more in their meetings and on their film and in their scouting reports and whatnot, but just from a fan's perspective, that was just, I'm going to throw the guy under the bus probably a few more times, but I mean, that was very Ken Dorsey-esque, just making, a mountain out of a molehill. And like I said, man, hopefully during the bye week they're able to figure out something going forward. Hopefully Brandon Beane's able to go out and make a trade, bring in some guys. We desperately need help on defense. And like I said, to their credit, in the second half they played better, but Buffalo needs a true wide receiver one, man. They need a game changer that at the very least, if he's not going to go out and have, these 100, 150-yard games, at least he's able to take some focus off of the other guys to get open. I mean, Buffalo has a guy in Shakir that, I mean, he's borderline, I'd say probably a wide receiver 2 on most rosters. And, if we're able to get the ball in his hands, man, he's very shifty. He's quick, he's elusive, and the problem is everybody knows he's Buffalo's number 1 option. They take him away most games. So then Josh is left throwing to guys like Josh Palmer, who comes out in the very first play of the game on offense for Buffalo. Josh hits on a deep ball for like 50 yards, but then, he gets hurt in the second half. We don't see him again. So there's a weapon away. Dalton Kincaid didn't suit up. He was hurt, and then you got guys like Keon Coleman, who Buffalo, I mean, this is my personal opinion, we're, almost a year and a half into the Keon Coleman experience. I've seen enough of him, dude. Sure, he had a funny, combine interview, and he had the funny moments during the, his post-draft, visit when they did the behind-the-scenes tour of him, looking at his locker and all that. And I mean, he's a personality dude, but personalities don't win football games. And the guy has just not showed up. He's not winning his routes. The jump balls that everybody was just oohing and on about, from college and even in training camp, he's not winning those matchups. So, I mean, what are we doing with him at this point? And then you got, kind of like these Band-Aid guys that come in, like, Shavers and Elijah Moore. And, I mean, all they are is just, glorified, I don't even know what to call them. I mean, Moore's got some speed, and Shavers is a big guy. So, like, what do you know? They're nothing special. I mean, on most rosters, they'd probably be on the practice squad. So we've got to do something to address that, man. I mean, I've said it, I don't know how many times. Buffalo has a unicorn for a quarterback in Josh Allen, a guy that we have been waiting on in Buffalo since Jim Kelly, and we're wasting him. He's already in year 8, and we're wasting him. And we've also got a guy in James Cook who's, you know, probably a top 5 back in the NFL, and we're, you know, at this point we just paid him, and we're not playing him on 3rd and 4th down. Like, boy, I could ramble a lot, man, but you know, we're 21 minutes into this thing. It looks like it's going to be another week of a long video, so you know, that's kind of my thoughts on the game. You know, and the other thing I kind of wanted to touch on, and you know, if you're a part of the Bills Twitterverse, you know, you follow a lot of the, you know, Bills personalities on social media, you know, the ones that do the game breakdowns, the post games, you know, or even the live reactions throughout the games. You know, everybody is very quick to jump on the, you know, we've got to fire Bobby Babbage, we got to fire McDermott, we got to fire Joe Brady. And you know, I'm not saying I'm against it either, just because, like I said, we're wasting Josh Allen. But I think the one person that deserves a lot of blame, and his name is not thrown around hardly at all, but that's Brandon Beane, man. Everybody loved him because he's the one that drafted Josh Allen. And you know what? Credit to him. Glad we got Josh Allen instead of Josh Rosen. But, man, after Josh Allen, I went back and looked at the last, from 2018 to 2024, his last drafts. So what is it, 7 drafts, 8 drafts, I think, somewhere in there. He has fumbled the bag on a ton of his first round picks. Yes, you got Josh Allen and you got Tremaine Edmonds in your first year, 2018. Those were your guys. And you know what? Josh. You know, Edmonds didn't really, I mean, he was a good player for Buffalo. Wasn't really, you know, he wasn't worth the money that Chicago gave, but you know what? He's a good player in the league. So you know what? Credit to him for those guys. But after 2018, I mean, the perfect example, you know, you go back and look, like he drafted Kyrie Elam in the first round. He's so bad that they gave him away to Dallas for pennies, and now he's, you know, proven why Buffalo traded him. He's been terrible with Dallas. And I mean, heck, even you can go back to last year's draft, not this past one, but the year prior. You know, Buffalo traded back with Kansas City to get into the second round. You know, Kansas City takes Xavier Worthy, who's had a much better career up until this point than Keon Coleman, the guy that Buffalo ended up drafting on day 2. And it's, you know, there's a few other examples you can go back and look at, but I looked at the draft picks, and in my opinion, he has made maybe 5 picks that have been just, you know, A+ solid players. You know, you got Josh Allen and Tremaine Edmonds, the 2 guys I just touched on. He drafted James Cook in the second round, so that great signing there. He drafted Shakir, which I still think he's going to be a good player if Buffalo is able to get a number 1 receiver and they're able to, you know, kind of tandem up with each other. And And then, in my opinion, then he drafted Spencer Brown, who started off rough. I mean, he started off rough at right tackle, but he's really coming to his own, and he's been a stud on the right side of that O-line. So, I would say those 5 players are the A+ players. And even those, you could argue, Shakir and Brown. And then you look at, guys that he's drafted that are, they're decent players. You probably grade them, anywhere from a B to a C probably. They drafted Dwayne Carter, who's been playing well this year in this past draft. Osiris Torrance, he's starting to kind of round into form. Greg Rousseau, he's frustrating because he has all the ability to be like Von Miller 2.0, but he just, for some reason, man, just something does not click with him every game. He'll have these crazy games, kind of like last night, where he's able to get in, get a sack, get QB pressures. I mean, hell, he blocked the field goal kick. But then you'll have other games where you don't hear from him. Then another guy, actually 2 other guys you could throw in that same breath would be Terrell Bernard and Christian Benford. Both of those guys got paid this offseason and extended. And when they're on, they're playmakers, but there's times you don't hear from them. Or if you do hear from them, it's negative. And so, and then outside of that, there was a guy, Bills fans will remember, Harrison Phillips. He's another guy that being drafted. He was a solid player for Buffalo, and he's kind of bounced around a bit. I think he went to Minnesota as a free agent, and I believe he's with the Jets now. But yeah, I mean, it's sad that you can go back and look over the past, whatever it is, 7, 8 drafts, and I can fit a list of 5, 6, 8, and maybe 10 to 11 guys on a sheet of paper that are just, worth mentioning. I mean, that's saying a lot, that you hit on Josh Allen. And Josh Allen has been the Band-Aid of all Band-Aids for the Bills. And now that we do not have a guy that can help him in the passing game and allows him to bail the Bills out, I mean, a lot of the holes are showing, and they're holes that Brandon Beane's created by missing in the draft. Not to mention all these free agent signings that he brings in that turn out to be, just not good trades, not good signings. I mean, last year he went out and got Amari Cooper. I mean, what did he do? And then he ends up just turning around and retiring this year after signing with the Raiders. So it's a lot of the blame needs to go to Brandon Beane, and his name is not being thrown around enough, and there needs to be some pressure put on him. And if I'm Terry Pagula, and I'm not, because I would address it. Pagula's a very hands-off owner. He trusts the guys he's got, and if you look at the state of the Buffalo Sabres, that tells you everything you need to know. If it wasn't for Josh Allen, I truly believe Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott would have been out of Buffalo a long time ago. And that's not to say their jobs are safe now. I mean, every season under Sean McDermott, the Bills have had ugly back-to-back losses. I mean, you remember last year, it was kind of the same thing, like just very ugly defensive games, poor offensive performance, and they dropped 2 straight. And then, they, to their credit, they finished 13-3 last year. Do I think this team can go 13-3? Not a chance. Right now, they're lucky to be a 10-win team, maybe 11 wins. So that's kind of my state of the Bills. I'm approaching 30 minutes here. Jordan, sorry that you got to edit this, but we're kind of ramping up to DEFCON level 2 here in Orchard Park, or there in Orchard Park. I'm in Charlotte. I got nice weather here. But yeah, that's my state of the union, state of the whatever you want to call the Buffalo Bills right now. We head into the bye, and then coming out of the bye, Buffalo's coming here. They're coming to Charlotte to play the Panthers, and boy, I tell you what, if they cannot beat the Carolina Panthers coming off a bye, which Sean McDermott is undefeated off of a bye as the head coach, but if we cannot beat the Carolina Panthers after a bye, then my DEFCON is going to go through the damn roof, because that's a team they should beat 11 out of 10 times. So we'll see. I even said, in our group chat last night, I said, man, you watch, this Bills defense is going to make Bryce Young look like Tom Brady in a couple weeks. And you know what? They made Michael Penix look like Michael Vick last night. So anything's possible in the NFL, man. But I'm off next week. Buffalo's off. Hopefully they're regrouping and they're figuring some stuff out, because some things got to change, and they got to change quick. Guys got to get healthy. This will help. So yeah, I will see everybody post Carolina game, and let's pray and hope that they show up. So anyway, appreciate everybody tuning in and staying to the very end. If you made it to the end, I'm sorry you had to listen to me talk for a half hour. So we will see y'all in a couple weeks. Go Bills.